Thank you for being with us online. Our desire is to journey with you however you want to connect with us. For more information about our church, visit us at ourjourney.tv. Now, here is Pastor John Richards.
Today I've got a little bit on my heart that God laid on me the last few weeks, and it's about one of the major church stereotypes I ran into growing up, and also one of the things I feel like as Christians we have to pay attention to. A little bit about me, my background. I started going to church when I was in high school to play the game of softball. If you've grown up in this area, or if you've grown up in the Bible Belt area, if you graduated from playing high school sports to just what they call intramural if you're in college, you found church leagues to play with. So I found a church, which is actually Henderson Memorial right up the road. A great church. I love the body there. And I started playing softball there, okay? But when I accepted Jesus as my Lord, there's a lot of stereotypes put in. And not by that church, but by people who were my friends that were Christians. And one of those things was, I should know everything, okay? And I feel like that we are that way sometimes as believers. We should know everything, okay? How many of you guys have raised kids, okay? Okay, raised kids. How many of you done it well? Me either. Man, I love this church. It's so great. We're a church full of bad parents. And that's one of the things is as we grow up and as we do things, we expect our children to do different stuff, to grow, right? And that's something that we have to think about in maturity as Christians the same way. We can't walk up and say, you have Jesus, it's time for you to be a man. You know everything. It doesn't work that way. So this weekend, yesterday, I took my kids and I went with Pastor Jared, who's an amazing man. And by the way, the band did an amazing job. They were phenomenal. But Pastor Jared and Pastor Vince's son Bennett and I went and saw Shazam yesterday. Shazam. I don't know anything about Shazam. In fact, after watching the movie, I still really don't know anything about Shazam. But he is I think it was a 14-year-old boy who used the word Shazam and became Superman, minus the laser vision, right? And that's what a lot of times as Christians, as churches, we get there. We think, because I know I'm saved, because I accepted Jesus as my Lord, I should know everything. And it doesn't work that way. So there's no magic button. There's no anything. So today's lesson is entitled, I got this from Pastor Will in our staff meeting this week, is Shazam Wow. So because of Sham Wow, the crazy, I think Australian guy with the spiky hair who just screamed into everything. And the issue is the easy button, things to doing simple, right? But as I said, the stereotypes and things like that is that it's there. One of the major stereotypes in church is that once you're saved, you know everything. And maturity isn't like that. Maturity is very much something you build, you grow, you prosper, you plant. Think about it. If there was an easy button, wouldn't Jesus used it? I mean, to be honest, he started ministry in his 30s. He trained underneath. He spent time learning from other people. He would go to synagogue and learn. He would go to this and learn. He would learn. He would grow. He would advance his knowledge. Jesus matured in his ministry the same way we should be doing it. There's no instant access. There's no Ethernet cable running to your brain that downloads everything right away. There's no Wi-Fi. It works out in the sense of that. But I want to think about that is, with maturity, the growing has to cultivate. The growing has to cultivate. It has to build up. So today we're going to look at Mark chapter 4. We're going to start with verse 3. And this is the throwing of the seeds, the scattering of the seeds, the growing of the seeds. So the first part is, consider this. A farmer went out and saw seeds. As he cast the seed, some of it fell along the beaten path, and soon the birds came and ate it. Okay, so this was the first seed. The farmer was throwing all the seeds out. He threw it everywhere, and he came out and went, Okay, I'm going to throw it over there. Oh, look, there's some birds. They ate my seeds. Right? Why'd you eat my seeds, birds? Right? What happened there? And what happened there is kind of easy to understand, but hard to understand. And the issue is the birds aren't necessarily just birds. It's where you find your seed planted. If you find yourself, if we place ourselves in dangerous situations and around dangerous people, our growth's affected. I say that from full maturity in my life. I was blessed by God. I'm a little hot, Cody, if you can fix that. I am completely blessed to not grow up in a drug home, an alcoholic's home, anything like that. I am blessed by that. But I have friends who did. And I have friends who struggle with that every day. Because of the situation they were in. Because of where they grew up in. Where we are in our life, where our seed lands, and those people around us really affects our maturity. It really affects where we go. And I say that as a dad, raising kids. I love my daughters. I love my daughters. I don't know how I have any hair, but I love my daughters. But so often, they stress me out. And it's with small things, like hair in the bathroom. Why is that a thing? And other aspects of their life, it stresses me out to have daughters. As you can tell, I am not a daughter. I didn't know how to raise daughters. My wife, bless her heart, is an amazing woman, and without her, I would have two of the biggest tomboys and still two pretty women growing up in my home. But it stresses me out. And my daughters, when they would get around friends, I've noticed something. They would change. They would become who their friends were. I call it the chameleon effect. And the reason I say that is because you become who you're around. Good or bad, you become who you're around. So if somebody's doing something bad, you're more than likely going to do something really stupid. I can testify to that. Growing up, I did some really stupid things. I won't say that because my mom's in the room. So it works out. But you do things based on who you're around, who you work with, where you go, who you go out with at night. You grow. You prosper. You fail. Those birds, those seeds, where you land. If you're in the wrong area and those birds are coming, those bad people are coming, those dangerous situations are coming, you're going to have a really hard time growing. Next verse, 5. Other seeds fell onto gravel with no topsoil, and the seeds quickly sprouted since the soil had no depth. But when the days grew hot, the sprouts were scorched and withered because they had insufficient roots. This is one that I took to heart. And the reason I take to heart is, you look here, no depth. Okay? I really feel like as an American and as a Christian and as a man of God in this world, it is my responsibility to keep growing as far as I can go with my roots. Because if I decide where I'm at right now is the best depth for my life, what the issue is everyone else keeps growing or I die with it. This is something I've had to struggle with in my life because often as Christians, we have this issue where we go and we figure out where we are. Okay? We figure out how deep we are. We figure out where our roots are. Right? I have no idea how Carrie teaches in the nursery or does nursery. She's amazing. I don't know how she does it. Because my mind, and I have this issue with my wife as well, my mind goes, why don't you understand what that word means? Why don't you understand? Why don't you know those words? Using bigger words than most people. And the issue is I'm teaching on my level, not their level. But the thing is if I'm teaching in a nursery, I'm teaching my son Ember, who's 5. If I start teaching him bigger words and bigger words and bigger words, he's going to grow into use those. But I can't expect him to know how to spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? I can't even spell that, right? We can't expect that to happen. We can't expect the depth to happen, but it's gradual. The depth grows. We prosper. We keep getting bigger and bigger. If your depth of learning never increases, your level of maturity can never increase. Often, we get to a point where we feel like we are stuck. We get to a point where we feel like we don't need to know anymore. We get to a point where we don't know what else to do. And in those situations in my life, I turn to God, I turn to reading, and I turn to my wife for some kind of understanding, because usually I'm just going crazy or something. And that's the thing, is we have to find those ways and those people in our lives to keep us growing deeper. Is that better? Sorry. My trendy shirt folded over. We have to really focus ourselves and focus on growing deeper, experiencing ourselves deeper, to learn more, to understand more. And that's very difficult. Especially being a man. And I say that with all honesty, because my wife knows everything and I know nothing. But we have to figure out exactly what we need to grow in. There are aspects of our lives that we focus on and we work with that other people have no idea about. If you guys know Jerry, you've all seen him. He wears a Hawaiian shirt every single Sunday. He's in the back right now. If you know Jerry, Jerry will start talking about some kind of thing that is gear and tech, and I have no idea what he's talking about. Sue doesn't know what he's talking about either. But I have no idea what he's talking about. But Jerry knows. He's learned. He's studied. He's built up. If you talk to Dr. Dale knows so much. He knows so much. Pastor Vince knows so much. You find those people and you figure out who can build into you. Your spiritual education has to keep getting deeper, or you could wither away. We get stuck. We get complacent. We get to thinking what we know is what we know, and that's all we need to know. My favorite TV show growing up was G.I. Joe. And at the end of every G.I. Joe episode was the phrase, knowing is half the battle. I don't know why I would need to know how to pick up an electrical line if it was, falling into a pond, but knowing is half the battle. The advancing, those things are like that. It's knowing, advancing your knowledge, your understanding is key. And we have to make sure that we are continuing our growth, continuing our maturity, continuing our advancement of our education. And I'm not talking about going out and getting a master's degree or a doctorate or anything like that. I looked at getting a very large degree a couple months ago for my wife, and I said I would have to write a 55-page paper, and I said, I'm out. No thanks. But there are other ways. If you're looking for something you need to learn on, there's something you have an interest in, talk to Dr. Dale, talk to Carrie, talk to Pastor Vince. I'm sure there's a series by Dale that has 500 lessons on that same topic. And I say that with all honesty because I've done that. I've gone to his Vimeo channel and started watching videos on when I wanted to learn something. All of it's out there. That's the great thing about our generation, or this generation right now, is that the internet is there. Learning is there. You just have to pay attention to who you're learning from. Mark 4:7. Other seeds fell among the thorns. So when the seed sprouted, so did the thorns, growing out of the young plants, so they could produce no grain. Seeds fell upon thorns. And when I think about thorns, I think about this, is what is causing you pain? What is affecting you? And then in those situations, you have to step away from that. And one of those things I see affecting the American church so much is negativity. And I say that with 100% honesty. We are so quick to get so negative about everything. We are so fast to blame someone else. We are so fast to say whatever. I was watching a TV show with my wife, and it really summed it up rather well. And in the TV show, a woman stole another woman's identity. And she said, "Do you have no remorse for what you did?" She said, "You have no idea how hard it was to be you for a year." So she stole someone's identity, but she complained about having to be that person for a year. And I think that's where a lot of times those negative thoughts, those impressionism, those things that happen in our life is too often we find ourselves around the negativity. So in maturity, we have to learn to stay away from negative people and find those who build us up. And I say that with 100%. I was a youth pastor for many years, and I worked with college students for many years. And one of my favorite songs is by a band called Family Force 5, and one of the lines in the song was, "Save your drama for your mama." Because so often in college ministry, so often in youth ministry, there's nothing but drama. There's so much negativity, so much things happening that you're just kind of going, why? Why are you doing this? Why can't we focus on being better? Why can't we build each other up? I love our staff. Our staff is full of sarcastic people who like to build each other up. And I say that with complete love. You never know what's going to be said to you in here, but then you always know you're going to get lifted up at the end of the conversation. And Jared is the best at it. He's going to probably stand up somewhere and dab later because he does it all the time. But he is so encouraging to have in the office. He builds people up. Pastor Vince is an amazing man to build people up. You don't believe me? You guys have candy on the first 2 rows. I didn't get candy. I had to steal it from his desk. No, I'm good. Thank you. But we need to focus our attention, and not when we're around those thorns is to find those people and not focus on the negative, but find the people who build us up. Find those who make us stronger. Right? We need to focus on who makes us better. Because when you're around somebody who's making you worse, what's happening is they're just trying to tear you down so you are worse than them or not as good as them. But the thing about a true friend and somebody in maturity and being a Christian is that when you build others up, the kingdom grows. It is so awesome to stand before you, to see where we've come in a year. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of hard work. But it's been a blessing to me personally because I've sat next to men and women in our church, in this room and other rooms, and watched them build each other up. Negativity is not something we like to put up with. And sadly, that's something we all put up with far too often. So focus on that negativity. If you see that, flee, run away. It's not worth it. And I say that with my whole heart. It's not worth it. The stress, the bitterness, the anger you're going to feel by being around someone like that, I don't care who they are, it becomes too much. It's too much to bear. The next verse, this last verse we're going to study today is, "But some of the seeds fell onto the ground, rich soil that kept producing a good harvest. Some yielded 30, some 60, and some even 100 times as much as was planted." This verse, I always go in this verse in my head as I go, this is awesome. If I follow God, I'm going to be a huge harvest. I'm going to be, I'm not a farmer. I'm in IT. But we're gonna grow, we're gonna prosper, we're gonna see stuff. And the cool thing about this that I always forget is, even in the best environments, maturity takes time. No matter how good of a parent you are, or you guys all agree with me, we're all bad parents, it works out. So no matter how good of a parent you are or how good of a person you are, maturity takes time. We have to grow. And I have a story, and this story is something that happens in my house. It started at the age of 12 for my oldest daughter. My wife and I were at a parents' conference retreat, something they sent us to help us become better parents. I don't remember what it was because This is literally the only thing I remember from that conference. But we were given this drastically outrageous stat. And this stat is, I can't find it anywhere, so I don't even know if it's true. And this stat was this. 90% of the people who do drugs or drink or have sex before their marriage that are kids were never told by their parents not to do drugs and not to have sex before you're married. That was the stat thrown at me. I've never heard that stat anywhere else. I couldn't prove that anywhere else. But my wife and I were like, that is so not true. That can't be true. So as a joke to ourselves, when my daughter turned 12, every year or every day she'd leave the house with her friends, on a date, anywhere, we would always scream no matter which room we were in the house. It's the best part. It's my favorite part. Don't do drugs, no sex before marriage. We could be anywhere in our house and we would scream that out. And as you tell my daughter, my now 12-year-old daughter understands that because we're doing it to her now too, right? So we do this every single time, and we're like, okay, we were just being sarcastic. We want to make sure, okay, if this is a true stat, we want to make sure our kids knew we cared about them. And I was talking to my daughter on our trip to Starbucks we do because we're both coffee addicts. I was talking to her, and I was talking about that, and she says, you have no idea how much that sticks in my head. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, anytime I go in a situation I shouldn't be in, or I go in a situation where I could be in trouble, that is in my head. I said, yeah. Woohoo, I did something right? And then she's like, and it's helped me so much. And I was so proud to hear that. And she says, and I'm going to get that in my sister's head. So now she's turning into a bigger game. My almost 8-year-old and my 5-year-old scream it every time everybody leaves the house. Chris and I were going on a date. My son goes, don't do drugs, no sex before marriage. I was like, I had you. But that maturity takes time. That growth takes time. Okay? By us planting that seed and growing that and growing that and growing that, it's in my daughter's head. She is 19 years old and it's in her head. She probably hates me for that. I don't really care. But maturity takes time. That growth, that simple step, that little step. Something that my wife and I thought was a joke turned out to be something that has morphed and changed our family dynamic. Because our kids, and even my youngest son, has turned into a big joke. But he realizes what it means. He realizes it's protecting his sisters. And that is so huge to me. So where do we go from here? What's next? First up, we need to build up the young ones. I say build up the young ones because we need to focus on lifting those who are young Christians. And young does not mean little kids. If you are new in your faith and new to Jesus as your Lord, you need to be lifted up. Because this world is going to attack you. It's going to go at you like crazy. And if you're not being built up by other people, men and women around you, you're going to fall. And I say that with so much conviction and so much passion that is something we have to do as a church. If there's a new Christian in this building, tell us. Not because we want to celebrate you or throw you up on our shoulders and say, woohoo, or anything like that. We want to make sure you are protected. We want to pray over you. We want to lift you up. And we want to make sure you are walking where you need to walk, and we get people who walk next to you. So young here does not mean be young. It means a new believer. Next, grow deeper roots. If you feel like in your life you are at a point where you cannot grow any deeper, suck it up, buttercup. Grow deeper. No one is at that point. I don't care who you are. I don't care your age. I don't care anything. There's always something new to learn. There's a book out there. There's a pastor out there. There's a podcast out there. Something you can learn to grow deeper in your faith. And if you need some, I got hundreds of books. And in fact, we're going to be selling all of Pastor Vince's book because he gave us permission. He's online right now, and I just want him to, I see his eyes bulging out. It's so great. But we can put stuff in your hands to make you grow. And we can get it at your level. We can find where you are at, what you're interested in, make sure it's pulling you up. Third part, flee the negative. Flee the negative. We cannot control what other people do. We cannot. I can't control what my kids do. You can't control what I do. I can't control you. But I can flee from you. If you're doing something I don't agree with or I don't feel like is right, Christian or non-Christian, I can flee. I can say, Jesus, take care of me. I can sing a song, Jesus, take the wheel. I think that's a song. That's the song, right? But we go there and we focus on fleeing that negative, finding those positive people, building each other up. It makes a huge difference, not only in our community, but in our lives. I love watching Carrie, you're in small group. Carrie, you're in my sermon a lot today. Man. I love watching Carrie's small group because Cody Burlingham, if you don't know Cody, he's in the back corner. He's really bright. He's very tomato-y today. I don't know why. Something about lack of sunscreen. But Cody is what I call a catalyst. What a catalyst is he builds people up. He interacts with people. He gets people intertwined, and they grow, and they do things, and they do life together. Will is another one. If you go out to lunch with Will, or you go anywhere with Will, he talks for 5 hours. I don't know how Julie does it. But everywhere he goes, he knows people. He knows people. They are building people up. They're encouraging other people to walk with Jesus. Are they perfect? No. Will they admit they're perfect? No. Well, Will may. He's kind of arrogant sometimes, but he's not perfect. But so often that those are the people we need in our lives who are going to build us up, who are going to encourage us and keep pushing us forward and forward and forward. Keep moving forward. Lastly, hold on. It's a long ride. And I say that because next year I will turn the amazing age of 40. I'm so excited about being 40 because it means I'm old. In my head growing up, 40 was the age of being old. So I'm expecting all these great things to happen at 40. I'll have a walker. Actually, I guess I already have that half the time, so it works out. But I'm expecting so many things to happen at age of 40, and I realize that I have been married to my amazing and beautiful wife for 16 or 15 years this year. It is all her. I have no idea how she puts up with me. I say that with all honesty. She's an amazing woman. But for 15 years of my life, and every day is still hard. Every day is still a fight. Every day is still working together as a couple to be who we are in Jesus. It's a long road. Being a Christian is a long road. I've been working with Dr. Dale on the Mexico mission trip this year, and it's 50 years this year of him serving down there. And the concept of 50 years is mind-boggling to me, of serving down there. Because most missionaries, and I've been around church, I've worked a lot with different missionaries organizations, things like that for several years. But the concept of doing something over and over and over for 50 years is amazing to me. He stayed the test of time. He keeps pushing forward. He keeps moving forward. He keeps innovating. He keeps doing different stuff. Not because he wants to, but because Jesus wants him to. And that is the sign of a mature person. Jesus is pushing him forward. Because I love Dale. I love him very much. The first time I met him, he was wearing his Poppy shirt. Right? Because that's who I met first. I met him as Emma and Bennett's grandfather, which I think is his favorite title. But so often we need to focus on how long the game is, how long it is. We can't walk up to a situation and say, got my ministry, I'm good to go, woot. Done, clocked out, clock in. Doesn't work that way. It is a process. It is a marathon, and it is something you guys are going to excel at. So, just like Jesus, we have to continue to mature and grow and prosper and live and find who he is in our lives. And I pray you guys rock it. I say it with all honesty because I would love to see Journey Church explode, and not of anything any of the staff are doing, but because of what somebody in the congregation is doing. Because that's where the real difference happens. Let's pray.
Thank you for joining us at Journey Church. Our hope is that these messages challenge your soul, equip your spirit, and give you a hope for your future. We look forward to doing life with you. Now, let's go this week and be the church in our community as we focus on loving God and loving others. See you next week.